Money for jobs and education.
Money for jobs and education.
Not for war and occupation.
Not for war and occupation.
Money for healthcare and education.
Money for healthcare and education.
Not for mass deportation.
Not for mass deportation.
Money for housing and education.
Money for housing and education.
Not for ICE and deportation.
Not for ICE and deportation.
Money for housing and education.
Money for housing and education.
Not for genocide and occupation.
Not for genocide and occupation.
Money for food and education.
Money for food and education.
Not for genocide and occupation.
Not for genocide and occupation.
Money for healthcare and education.
Money for healthcare and education.
Not for war and occupation.
Not for war and occupation.
Money for healthcare and
Money
reparation.
for healthcare and reparation.
Not for genocide and occupation.
Not for genocide and occupation.
When Venezuela is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Venezuela is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Palestine is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Palestine is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Money for jobs and
Money
education.
for jobs and education.
Not for war and occupation.
Not for war and occupation.
Money for jobs and education.
Money for jobs and education.
Not for war and occupation.
Not for war and occupation.
No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air.
No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air.
U.S. out of everywhere.
U.S. out of everywhere.
Oh, sorry. No boots on the ground, no bombs in the
No
air.
boots on the ground, no bombs in the air.
U.S. out of everywhere.
U.S. out of everywhere.
Good evening, sisters, brothers, and siblings. My name is Carrington. I'll be the MC for tonight. We're just going to wrap up our brief noise demonstration and outreach with all speakers from all the orgs that endorsed and came out today to brave the cold and the wind, to show solidarity with the Venezuelan people standing against U.S. imperialism. To get us started, we'll have Andre from the People's Power Assembly first on the mic. Let's hear for Andre.
Good evening, sisters, brothers, and siblings. Thank you all for coming out to tonight's protest picket line to raise the issue to stop the U.S. war on Venezuela. U.S. imperialism has been attacking Venezuela ever since the election of Hugo Chavez, who was democratically elected. And let there be no mistake about that. He indeed was democratically elected. When Hugo Chavez passed away, his vice president Maduro then became president. He continued the policies of Hugo Chavez into this very day as President Maduro travels through Venezuela. He rallies the Venezuelan people to continue the legacy, to continue the promises that Hugo Chavez said he would bring to Venezuela, to improve the education, which they have done, to improve the health care, which they have done. They have just about wiped out illiteracy in Venezuela over the years, since Chavez became president, and those efforts continue with President Maduro. The people of Venezuela have nothing to gain by being under the yoke of U.S., British, German, and French imperialism. The resources that are in Venezuela, those resources that are in the ground, we say, such as oil, lithium, and other resources, they belong to the Venezuelan people. not to the multinational billionaire corporations that try to rule the world and try to run countries. We had a young woman here who's Venezuelan, holding the sign against the against war on Venezuela, and she was speaking to me. She's against the U.S. having war in Venezuela. However, she misunderstood what President Maduro has done in Venezuela and what it has achieved. And she told me about the stories of her family in Venezuela. She talked about how there were shortages of food and some of the hospitals may not have been as clean. I tried to press her and let her know that if Venezuela was allowed to have the gold back that England has stolen from them, billions of dollars in gold, if Venezuela was not being sanctioned by U.S. imperialism, which hurts Venezuela, which keeps other countries from being able to do business with Venezuela, that the country wouldn't have such a hard a time. So the difficulty they're having, I tried to explain to her, is not because President Maduro is in charge, but it's because U.S. imperialism along with European imperialism all together are attacking Venezuela because they want the resources that Venezuela has. They want access to the oil that Venezuela has, that they want to steal and use for themselves. I relayed to her, because she's 23 years old, so at the time of the Iraq War, she was just a baby. So I relayed to her how the U.S. government took the same attitude towards Saddam Hussein, saying, we want regime change. Well, when they killed off, they had a war that destroyed the country of Iraq, and they killed off Saddam Hussein. Iraq is no longer one whole country. Iraq is broken up into 3 separate countries. This is what U.S. and European imperialism has done to Iraq. As it turns out, guess who got contracts for oil exploration? 2 people that were high officials in the government of George Bush Jr. Condoleezza Rice, and the other is Dick Cheney. After Iraq had fallen due to the war by U.S. imperialism, those 2 that own oil exploration countries had the rights to dig for oil exploration. That right should only belong to the people of Iraq, not to former U.S. government officials. So I explained to the young woman that this is how Iraq was broken up. The country was destroyed because of the war by the U.S. And that the same is happening to Syria after they chased out Assad. Syria is now broken up into 3 different sections. So if she understood that if the U.S. had a war against Venezuela, it would destroy the country as it is today. But unfortunately, she has her grandmother and cousins that are all still living in Venezuela, telling her stories about how horrible things are. So I hope she listened and understood that if Venezuela was left alone by U.S. imperialism, by European imperialism, that it would begin to thrive. And the vision that Hugo Chavez had that's still being carried out by President Maduro and the people of Venezuela would be allowed to continue and flourish and improve the quality of life in Venezuela. So thank you all for being here tonight. It's a little breezy, but This is what we have to do sometimes as we stand up to U.S. imperialism. We stand up to defend Venezuela. We stand up to defend Cuba. We stand up to defend Nicaragua. And we encourage any other South American country that wants to turn away from U.S. imperialism to chart its own course in developing its country. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Andre. Chavez presente, Maduro presidente.
Chavez presente, Maduro presidente.
Chavez presente, Maduro presidente.
Chavez presente, Maduro presidente.
Next, we will have Brant with the Communist Party USA speaking for us.
Hey everybody, I am old enough to remember all of the things that he was just talking about with Iraq. And it's funny, just to give a side note to that. I remember before the war in Iraq, when we were doing actions and trying to educate people about the sanctions that were being imposed upon Iraq way before 9/11 even happened, and the degree to which the parallels between 1990s Iraq, early 2000s, before 2001, and what is happening with regard to Venezuela or any other country that's under U.S. sanctions today. And all of these lies, the mask has been falling off. They've been talking about narco-terrorism at the same time that he's pardoned actual narco-traffickers from other countries, all while he's going for full-scale war and invasion against Venezuela. A country that has oil, another parallel. And it's also a country that's a communist country. And being from CPUSA, we take that a little bit personally. Red baiting has been happening for so long in this country that it's starting to become something that people are starting to become resistant to, but it's still out there. You have Democrats and Republicans both out there pointing at each other saying they're communists. In the meantime, you know who's not in the Epstein files? Communists. This war, we're going to be out here, and I wish I had some better aspiring words to say we're going to shut it down, we're going to put a stop to it. But it's our job to be out here, to raise our voices, to make sure that we're seen, and do everything that we can, because this is not going to be a quick invasion. This is going to be a long, slow, torturous process of the United States trying to rob Venezuela of all its resources. And everything we can do here, we need to be strategic, and we need to find ways to throw wrenches in the system and put a stop to this theft. Anyway, I'm sorry I don't have a whole big rah-rah speech or anything, but anyway, have a good night.
Viva, viva Venezuela!
Viva, viva Venezuela!
Viva, viva Venezuela!
Viva, viva Venezuela!
Thank you, everybody. Next, we will have Cass with the Asian American Collective Liberation Front speaking with us next.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone who came out tonight. Hope I'm speaking close enough to the mic that y'all can hear me. So I'm with the Asian American Collective Liberation Front. And this war on Venezuela is something that is very much an Asian American issue. Like many other siblings of color and different groups of color, our diasporas have direct ties to U.S. imperialism. I, myself included, I am a biracial white Vietnamese American. You can do the math. We have felt directly what it feels like to be severed from our country, our culture, our people, our land, our families, our understanding of our ancestry and the legacy that we have. Myself, as a Vietnamese American, anti-colonialism is in our blood, it is in our culture, it is something that we have always fought. We have pushed the Chinese out thousands of years ago, we have pushed the French out, and we pushed the Americans out. American imperialism is something, like was mentioned, is a long game. The U.S. had intelligence in Vietnam 2 to 3 years, as we know, documented before the U.S. or before Vietnam had freedom and liberation from the French in 1954. We need to understand that this is a long game. And we need to understand that this is one that we will keep fighting. Asian Americans will not allow Venezuela to become the next Vietnam. Thank you so much.
Money for jobs and education.
Money for jobs and education.
Not for war and occupation.
Not for war and occupation.
Money for healthcare and education.
Money for healthcare and education.
Not for mass deportation.
Not for mass deportation.
Next, we will have Ginny with the Struggle for Socialism Party closing us out.
Thank you. As Carrington said, can you hear it? Is it coming through?
Yes.
Yeah. As Carrington said, I am Jenny from the Struggle for Socialism Party. And as our comrades here have mentioned, this war on Venezuela is purely a war of U.S. imperialist greed. We've been fed propaganda that it's about narco-terrorists. We've been fed propaganda about dictatorships. And all of that is a lie. And it's come to a point where Trump is even admitting on his social media that we're keeping the oil. We're doing this for oil. We're doing this for resources. He's blowing up innocent civilians that are fishermen. He's setting up a naval blockade, and he's doing all of this with the money out of my paycheck, out of your paycheck,
Right.
out of all of our paychecks.
Right.
Instead of using that money for the U.S. military to go and invade people that are in support of their own government, it should be here. It should be for our health care. It should be for SNAP benefits. It should be for resources for this community. Instead of using the blockade to strangle a country into hating their government and into desperation. We've seen the U.S. do this in Cuba. We've seen them do it in other places. The goal is to turn the people on their government so the U.S. can take over for an outpost, for the oil, and for the gold. And we are here to say we're not going to let that happen. We're going to stand up for Venezuela, and we're going to stand up for our community. Money for jobs and education.
Money for jobs and education.
Not for war and occupation.
Not for war and occupation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. That concludes our demonstration, noise demo and outreach for today. Just everyone said, I just want to say one little thing, and it's a culmination of how everyone touched on that the Venezuelan people will be able to fight for themselves. That the Venezuelan people will see this through. They will decide their destiny. They will decide ultimately how they will defeat and get over the hills and obstacles caused by U.S. imperialism. And I think that is so amazing because as Cass, as you mentioned, Venezuela will not, we do not want to see Venezuela become another Vietnam. But if it's in the books that the U.S. decides to invade, Venezuela will become a new Vietnam. And in Venezuela, we will see, as the revolutionaries of the past saw the French defeated at Dien Bien Phu, we will see the Hydra, the multi-headed Hydra that Fanon says, the beast of U.S. imperialism, defeated in the mountains in front of Caracas of Venezuela, the same way we saw the French defeated in the Vietnamese jungles. And that's we'll just kind of close on that. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Everybody
gonna get home safe.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Sorry, I was.
Anybody need a ride?